By morning, we were at Area 51 of the Groom Lake Air Force Base. They let us in right away. Everyone wanted to meet Irwin. They had Irwin's spaceship. It was a lot bigger than I expected. The only problem was that the Air Force guys wanted to know how it worked, so they took apart the insides. When they tried to put it back together, they had parts left over everywhere. It's a good thing that they met Irwin. Whenever he fixed anything, he added extra parts, so it kind of evened out. He and his friends tried to put the spaceship back together. I wasn't very happy about that. I figured if he wanted to put the spaceship back together, he wanted to go home without me. But I had plenty of time to worry about that.
When the word came down that the Soviets had captured aliens from the Nazis during the war, we knew we needed our own aliens. The possibility of an alien gap with the Soviets, it was unthinkable. Project Papercut was created to make an effort to find and recruit extraterrestrials to create our own military hardware. It was successful. Well, even within a few years, we had 2 aliens. Originally, we had 4, but there was a slight mix-up in the communications, and we had to shoot 2 of them for asking questions. Surviving aliens had some trouble adjusting to our American way of life, but through the use of heavy manacles and proper torture, we found ways to help them adjust and become very productive.
Irwin had found the Syraxians he had been sent to rescue, but they were being held captive, forced to build a fleet of saucers for the Air Force. Worse, Irwin's only means of returning home, his spaceship, had been dismantled, gutted by Air Force technicians. Things looked grim.
Things looked grim.
I just said that.
Colonel Wallace was in charge. He hardly ever let me see Irwin. Irwin and his friends were working all the time.
Our technicians were working with our alien guests. They were making progress. Slowly, but it was happening. We tried to copy the alien technology, but even with the help of the aliens themselves, there were setbacks.
40 seconds. Oh no.
You know, the bright side of being in charge of a top-secret government project involving national security is no one can ask where the money is going.
The colonel was acting strange. I think he was losing his mind. Irwin couldn't take the workload much longer. Somebody had to do something fast.
Betty had one advantage. Being the only woman on the base meant that she could go anywhere without being questioned. In time, she was even allowed a brief visit with Irwin.
The colonel always kept a small plane on the runway. It was near the hangar where Irwin and his friends were working. If we ran, we could just make it and get away. I told Irwin, and he knew just what to do. He gave me a little gadget from the ship to hang on to. Irwin told me to be ready and to wait for the signal. I didn't have long to wait.
I didn't want to leave the civilian woman loose on the base, but she raised morale. And she was just a woman, not a security threat, limited understanding of technical issues. Still, reports came in about some unusual activity around Project Papercut. I suspected Soviet agents. For her own protection, I ordered Betty to be brought to my personal quarters where I could keep an eye on her, and she would be out of danger.
That colonel was giving me funny looks. I knew it was time to leave. Irwin and his friends knew that too. I heard a commotion outside, and when I looked out, there were bones and gristle everywhere. Irwin had arranged a barbecue.
While everyone on the base was eating, Betty, Irwin, Gary and Schuyler made their way quietly to the waiting cargo plane, taking with them the components needed to return to their home planet. Unfortunately, the plane had no fuel. Irwin used some of the saucer fuel he was smuggling out.
I thought this plan involved Irwin flying the plane. I mean, after all, he flew his spaceship across the galaxy. He thought I came up with the plan because I knew how to fly the plane. We were in big trouble. By the time we realized we couldn't fly it, the plane was at 10,000 feet. I got the hang of it quick enough. A 20,000-foot drop to certain death is a great motivator. The boys worked on their gizmo while I flew the plane to California.
By the time I found out what had happened, it was too late. Soviet spies had kidnapped all my aliens. Who could I tell? The whole project was top secret. So we just went on for another 2 years before anyone even noticed.
During the flight, Irwin, Gary, and Schuyler managed to adapt the wormhole generator retrieved from the spacecraft and activate it.
I wasn't worried about crashing the airplane. It was easy enough to fly once I figured out all the controls. But halfway through, the boys were all yelling and cheering. They had found a way to leave Earth. I didn't quite know what they had done, but I knew they were going to leave. Irwin sent Gary and Schuyler home. He stayed with me. Of course, he told them to send another spaceship, but he was staying. That was a good flight.
Betty flew the ungainly aircraft all the way to Burbank, California, where she tried to land.
Flying was easy. Landing wasn't so easy. Just before we touched down, I hit the wrong button. We weren't hurt. I was glad about that. You know what they say, any landing you can run away from. On our way out of Burbank Airport, we were stopped by the police. They asked us if we had a car. When we said no, they gave us one. Back then, they did that for everyone coming into the city. It wasn't long before we had a house in the suburbs. Now all we needed was an income. Irwin decided to get a job.